We need to talk about Ethan and Xana.
911 location of your emergency.
Breaking news out of North Idaho. Moscow police are investigating a homicide on King Road.
Is she breathing?
No.
So 5'10", all black. Could you see what color his eyebrows were or anything like that?
No, I don't remember what his eyes look like either.
Officers discovered the bodies of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Maddie Mogen, and Kaylee Goncalves, but no weapon has been located at this time.
Arrested. That's 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger in custody today.
Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false.
We do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area. There are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants.
Everything is alleged.
So the documentary that just came out, and if you missed it, you didn't miss much, but we did do a live for each episode of the new AMC Sundance Idaho 4 mockumentary is what I'm going to honestly call it, because there was so much misinformation. We're going to do that breakdown separately. I'll just say there's a new wave of people that are going to come into this case thinking that Ethan and Xana went to a formal at Sigma Chi and that the knife sheath was found in Kaylee's bed where Maddie and Kaylee were killed. And that's coming from a local girl who's complaining about people like me and you. One of the biggest things that really upset me was that Chief Dollinger sat there and said that everyone pretty much got home around 2 a.m. That's the chief of the Moscow Police Department. He wasn't chief at the time, but he is chief now. He is openly lying. Plain and simple, he lied. How do we know that? Because everyone else that has touched this case, that has any sort of authority from either side and any of the sides in between, have all told us that at 2:15, when Xana apparently ordered DoorDash, she wasn't home. She was not at 1122 King Road. Cy Ray, who is the cell data analyst for the Kohberger side of things, even came out and said that they don't have this information. His own report claims he didn't even have full access to Ethan's records. And when Cy Ray did his report that was filed to the court in January of 2025, it also states that Ethan's information was not included in that analysis. It is important to note right here that even though Cy Ray is stating that he doesn't have complete records for Ethan, that he does claim to have full records for Xana. And even with this information, when he was asked this question specifically in his interview with the custody queens, he still couldn't give an answer. Neither was Bethany Funk's or Jack DeCour's, but that's not what this video is about. Now, there's been several different pieces of information come out since the plea deal, and it has been over a year since that took place. And while we do have some more pieces, there's more questions and still so much missing time. Now, Peter, who claims to be one of Ethan's best friends, and who Ethan and Xana were hanging out with for the majority of the night at the Sigma Chi party, not a formal, it was a lodge party that technically wasn't even supposed to be happening because something called Envision Idaho was happening that weekend. And according to some of the other Sigma Chi frat brothers whose interviews have also been released via FOIA, they stated they weren't sure how they even had permission to have that party because of it being Envision Idaho. So the fact that it happened, and it happened on the night that all of this also took place, is pretty interesting, but neither the point either. He claims that the party ended at around 1 o'clock, and the last time that he saw Xana and Ethan was still over at Sigma Chi around 1:20 in the morning. Now, we had heard previously that there was another fraternity that Xana was supposed to go by after the Sigma Chi party ended, but we knew from a long time ago also that that apparently didn't take place. Well, that was verified in the more recent Sigma Chi interviews that there was another fraternity where people were supposed to be heading to for after the Sigma Chi party was over, but that Xana and Ethan were apparently not part of the group of people that went there. So that's now twice in a little over a year that we've heard that story from two different people, one on some docuseries and once from an actual police released interview. And we can take what Peter says about the last time he saw them was at Sigma Chi at 1:20 in the morning. But then we also have to take what Xana's own father has said. He has held it deep down in his soul that he should have driven drunk that night to get to 1122 King Road, and he regrets not doing so. And he claims the reasoning is because Xana called and told him that she was home and not feeling well, and he wanted to go over there because he just so happened to be in Pullman with Xana's sister Jasmine for Pullman's parents' weekend. He was with Xana for U of I's just the weekend prior, and he regrets not going. Now, there's also sort of proof that maybe even portions of possibly even pizza being ordered being a real thing. There are 2 different camera footages from that area, 1112 and Linda Lane. And around the same time, we see what looks to be a Domino's delivery car with the light at the top driving through the neighborhood. There's also Domino's pizza boxes in the back trash can by the back slider and Venmo payments from that night for pizza. So what was it? Was she home? Was she at a party? The other reason why it's so important that we actually know that is because according to the police report that was written for the interview that took place on the 13th between Moscow PD and Jeff and Jasmine about what happened to Xana, the report states that the phones actually indicate that it was Friday night. That was the last night that either of them actually spoke to her. But Jeff has held it here that it was Saturday for almost 4 years now. So which was it? We don't know. They won't release the interviews, and I don't know any other way to actually verify that information. I feel like he wouldn't be holding it here if it was Friday. That really wouldn't make much sense, not for the way that he worded things in court for the sentencing. So then what is it? Was she at home at midnight, go back to Sigma Chi, and all of these things are actually true in their own way, just melted together in a way that we haven't been told yet? Who knows? The timeline that just recently came out in that horribly written book, Broken Plea, also states that there's portions where Xana's trying to call Ethan and he's not answering. There's text messages going to Peter, and there's some sort of insinuation in the way that the author chose to place the times that he chose to place, that maybe there was a little bit of separation that night between Ethan and Xana, and they weren't together at Sigma Chi the entire time. Now, I have FOIA'd this exact 108-page timeline, given the date frame of around November 2023, when it was supposedly handed over to the prosecutor's office, the fact that the Idaho State Police and the Moscow Police Department worked on it together, but I'm being told it just doesn't exist in the Moscow Police Department system. And I have emailed Chief Dollinger about this situation, on top of other things, including the missing audio in the 1112 King Road camera. See, the fact that we don't have any actual answers for when Ethan and Xana got home that morning, let's call it, is the main reason why we wanted the 1112 King Road footage. And if you're seeing my face for the first time, hi, hello. This channel is responsible for all of that footage, minus that little public packet being out there. It didn't really answer too many things because, again, the purpose was to try to get information on when Xana and Ethan actually got home. And the 12:55 to 2:30 segment that was sent is silent. They want us to believe that there's just no audio there, without realizing they've already told us that there actually is. Because, see, there's another segment after that, but it actually starts at 2:25. And so the beginning 5 minutes of the next segment, which is 2:25 to 2:30, has audio. But when that exact same time frame is at the end of the 12:55 to 2:30 segment, I'm being told it's not redacted. It just simply doesn't exist, that there just was no audio there for that clip. Just magically, right? Oddly enough, right at 2:27, in the smack dab middle of that infamous little 5-minute portion there, is that blood-curdling scream. But that's also not what this video is about. Now, here over the past week or so, there's been another interview that was released via FOIA over on Connor's channel of a friend of the girls. Her name is Kaylee Goncalves. And in her interview, she tells the police that she was told that at the time that all of the other girls were up in Kaylee's room talking about possibly going back to the grub truck to get more food, that she was told that Xana was already home and asleep.
Did or say anything else to you about either the events that night or something else, anything else leading up to it that seemed like it could be important?
No, all she told me was that Kaylee and Maddie had gotten home from grub truck, and Maddie was like mad at Kaylee, or Kaylee was mad at Maddie because Maddie kept eating her food, and they were just upstairs like laughing. And yeah, it was the four of them, all four roommates. Xana was already asleep, and she said that they thought about going to get more grub truck and then just decided against it.
Now, again, we have been told from everyone from cell analyst to the judge in this case that Xana was not at 1122 King Road when she made the 2:15 a.m. DoorDash order. Now, that's a whole nother issue in this case, is that the DoorDash took almost 2 hours to get there. And to this day, they have yet to release the photo of the DoorDash order at the front door that was apparently taken by Molly, the driver. I don't know why they're being so secretive, but just to throw another monkey wrench at this entire thing, when they were going through the self-authentication of records fight right before this plea situation, the DoorDash information that was submitted, according to very publicly and easily accessible records over there on the Case of Interest website for this case, they only had Ethan's DoorDash account. They only had Ethan's DoorDash records. They didn't have anything from Xana. But then how did they give us the original receipt? How did they give us the attachment that we got from that very, very long response of self-authenticating records that showed the latitude and longitude of the drop-off, that showed the time that it was dropped off, that showed the address of the 1122 King Road house? If it only was supposed to contain Ethan's records, because at that time they didn't have Xana's, how did they show us the receipt? That's why later, after the plea, when more DoorDash information came out and it showed that it was Xana's account, it clarified what they'd been trying to tell us, but just made the previous information now have a bunch more questions, like everything else in this case. So I will ask again, almost 4 years later, when the hell did Ethan and Xana get home to 1122 King Road that morning? Where were they between the time they did get home and after they apparently left the party, or at least, according to the very public record, according to everything the public has been told and the story out there as of now, the official record shows 1:20 a.m. being the last time that Ethan and or Xana was ever seen alive. Yet they were found at King Road when the police showed up. They apparently had food delivered, but weren't home when they made the order. And no, this was not a scheduled delivery. The story from Molly, the DoorDash driver, is that she basically is just really slow and sucks at her job. Don't believe me? Go back and listen yourself. There was a lot of double dashing on the dasher's side, meaning she's picking up more than one customer's order at a time. She spent so long trying to drop off the original double order that she had, that according to her, when she got back to the Jack in the Box in Pullman to pick up the next double order that contained Xana's order, that she took so long that Jack in the Box thought that she wasn't coming back and they threw away the food. So once she got to the store, they had to remake everything, which made everything go even longer. There's a lot of mystery everywhere. I don't understand why. Never mind the TikTok. I've said something about this forever now. In the probable cause order, it shows Xana's last TikTok activity to be 4:12 a.m. But in those same court documents that are still available to any and everybody, okay, on the public interest website, it shows her last time of activity to be 3:16 a.m. And again, that's not a time zone issue because the minutes are even different. So which one was it? We only would have actually known if this would have gone to trial. Because they're not just going to release personal information. The little pieces of the timeline that we got from the book, we can't trust. They're out of order. There's an extra hour thrown in there that throws off everything else, and then suddenly the timeline jumps back into normal. There are pieces from 2 different entities placing the exact same event into the timeline, but wording it differently. And because they're in different time zones, it's putting it as 2 events instead of 1. This happened with missed calls between Xana and Ethan. It took a minute to go back in and realize what exactly had happened here. Because remember, the Idaho State Police and the Moscow Police Department were both working on that together. So just like the probable cause information and pretty much everything else, it was a open access living document. Caused a lot of problems, obviously. And it will never not bother me that we are this far into this case and we don't know when Ethan and Xana got home. Don't you think that's critical info? Don't you think it's extremely important to know not only where Xana and Ethan went after 1:20 in the morning, considering they were not home at 2:15 when the DoorDash was made? And then there's all the time until the time of the crime to also consider, which could be technically another 2 hours from that 2:15 timestamp. So where were they? What time did they get home? Remember, they're basing Xana being in the kitchen or in the living room and maybe coming across the suspect, the perpetrator, whatever, whoever, being attacked outside of her bedroom. But there's no proof of that. There's no blood of Xana's anywhere besides her bedroom. That is a scientific fact based on public record. It's not her blood on the ping pong table, and there's no blood of Xana's in the kitchen, regardless of what some people have tried to claim. We have proven otherwise by filing FOIAs and getting official information from law enforcement. It's not true at all. So I don't know why they keep wanting to have it be that Xana encountered someone and became collateral damage when there's no proof of that. I don't know why they want it to be that Kaylee and Maddie were the first to die when there's technically no proof of that either. They can't actually give us death order. They can't give us anything. The story that Dylan tells cannot be verified. She also claims that she was calling everyone on their phones, trying to figure out what was going on. And then she called Bethany, and Bethany was the only one to answer. But if you look at the facts, if you look at the court records that are public, Dylan did not call Bethany. Dylan didn't call any freaking body. Bethany called Dylan, and then all of a sudden, Dylan started calling a bunch of people, and then the narrative started coming out. We don't know what the hell really happened. Bethany doesn't recall hearing Dylan calling anyone's name. They don't even report hearing the same things between the two of them. Why so much inconsistency? Where the hell were Ethan and Xana? And if one of them is really telling people, oh, well, we just figured Xana was asleep in her room, how come that's not being said in any of the police interviews? Because it's not. Both of them are basically saying, we have no clue. We didn't see them come home. We didn't hear them come home. We shouldn't still have all these questions. And I feel like that was a really important topic, especially with the sponsor of this video, because 1112 didn't help anything. And it was the only camera in that entire neighborhood. With all of those houses, with all of those car break-ins, with all of those, oh, someone just walked into my freaking apartment that I don't even know situations, with all of the doorknob jingles. No one else had any other cameras anywhere. Let's learn from mistakes, shall we? But also let me know what you guys are thinking about all of this down in the comments. Where do you think they were? Also consider the Linda Lane footage. That looks like it could be Ethan and Peter walking into those apartments around the time that there's a missed call from Xana to Ethan and there's messages to Peter. I don't know what to think. But let me know what you guys are thinking. And again, thank you so much, Simply Safe, for sponsoring today's video. See y'all.